Right now, you are wearing something. You probably did not spend more than a few seconds thinking about that choice this morning. Maybe you picked whatever was closest. Maybe you checked the weather. Either way, you put something on before you walked out the door, because that is what humans do. We cover ourselves. Every culture on Earth, in every climate, across every time in recorded history, wears clothes. You might think early humans started wearing clothes for simple reasons: modesty, protection, warmth. Except none of those are the real reason we started covering ourselves. And when you find out what really pushed early humans to cover their bodies, it changes how you think about fashion, culture, language, and what it means to be the kind of creature that looks in a mirror and feels the weight of being seen. Let us look at the timeline. Anatomically, modern humans have been around for about 300,000 years. But when you look at the real evidence, you find things like bone needles and hide-scraping tools showing up only around 120,000 years ago, and even that guess is generous. Most textile historians place the wide use of clothing at around 75,000 years ago, which means for the first half of our existence, we were mostly naked under the same African sun, dealing with thorns, insects, and cold nights with nothing but our bare bodies, which quickly rules out the most common explanation: warmth. Yes, humans later moved into colder climates where clothing became necessary, but clothing appears before that, while we were still in the tropics. So warmth matters later. The next explanation people usually reach for is protection: thorns, rocks, insect bites, and sure, that is part of it. But here is the problem: if protection were the main reason, clothing would have started on the parts that actually got hurt the most, the feet and hands. Instead, the earliest clothing in almost every culture covered the torso and groin first, the areas least exposed. That is not purely practical. It points to something else. Then, there is the lice theory, and this one is actually fascinating. Back in 2003, a group of geneticists looked at something unexpected. Lice. Not just any lice, but the split between head lice and body lice. Head lice live in hair. Body lice live in clothing. They literally cannot survive without fabric. So scientists traced when these two types split from each other. And that gives a clue about when humans started wearing clothes regularly enough for a whole new species to depend on it. The answer, about 170,000 years ago. That is the oldest hard biological timestamp we have for clothing. Not because of some bone needle or scraping tool, but because of a parasite. And that gives a clue about when humans started wearing clothes, partly because something evolved especially to live in them. But that date still does not tell us why. It tells us when the behavior was already established. The real origin goes back farther than we can measure right now. The reason lies somewhere deeper than fabric and needles and lice. Here is what researchers have started to argue. Clothing was not a practical invention. It was a symbolic one. In 2009, archaeologist Ian Gilligan published a detailed analysis about clothing and how we think. He suggested that choosing to cover the body is not just practical. It shows a deeper kind of thinking that sets humans apart from other animals. To wear clothing, you have to imagine a future version of yourself. You look at an animal hide, picture yourself wearing it later, plan how to turn it into something useful, and then actually do it. That might sound simple, but it is not. It involves memory, planning ahead, and thinking about the future. The same kind of mental ability we use to keep promises, plan our days, or worry about things that have not even happened yet. No other animal does this. A chimpanzee does not look at a leaf and think about how it could be useful tomorrow. But we did. And the moment we started clothing our bodies, we were not just protecting skin. We were showing for the first time that we could think ahead. Clothing is one of the earliest physical artifacts of the modern human mind. But there is something even deeper under that. Something most evolutionary biologists do not talk about when this topic comes up, which is shame. And not in the religious sense. Shame in the neurological sense. The awareness of being noticed, the feeling that your body is being watched and judged by others. This is a uniquely human experience. It requires what psychologists call theory of mind, the ability to step outside yourself and imagine what you look like through someone else's eyes. Dogs do not have this. Crows do not have this. Even our closest relatives, chimpanzees, barely show signs of it. But somewhere along the way, humans developed something deeper. The ability to see ourselves through other people's eyes. And once that clicked, everything changed. It was not just about surviving anymore. It became about how you looked, how people saw you, what you signaled to others. From that point on, clothing was not just about covering up. It became a way to shape identity, a way to control your image. The first person who wrapped animal skin around themselves was not just trying to stay warm. They were, in a sense, choosing how they wanted to be seen. And once that idea took hold, it never really went away. You can see it across cultures all over the world, even in places where clothing was not needed for warmth at all, like parts of the Amazon or the Pacific Islands. People still decorated themselves. Beads, paint, feathers, simple fibers, tattoos. Something was always there because the body was never just a body, because researchers studying clothing across different cultures have found something consistent. The urge to dress seems to speed up during times when human social groups are becoming more complex. As tribes grew larger, as hierarchies formed, as strangers started meeting strangers, clothing became a social technology, a system of instant communication. Before you could speak to someone, their clothing told you who they were, what group they belonged to, whether they were a threat or an ally, whether they ranked above or below you. Clothing is language, one of the oldest forms we have. And here is the part that should make you stop for a second, because it applies to you right now. You get dressed every morning without thinking much about it. But your brain is doing something ancient and deeply social every time you do. You are not just picking fabric. You are building a version of yourself that you want to show to the world. You are working out the space between who you are, who you want to be seen as, and what the situation requires. That anxiety you feel when you show up to something overdressed or underdressed, or when you realize you are wearing the wrong thing for the moment. That is 170,000 years of social thinking turning on. That is your brain running the same calculation your ancestors ran around the fire. We solved the basics: cold, survival, protection. But we did not stop. Our clothing became more detailed, more intentional, because it was never just about the body. It was about the mind, the part of us that knows we are being watched. Clothing did not just cover us.
It created a version of us. We did not start wearing clothes because we were cold. We started because we became aware that others could see us. And that never stopped. Tomorrow you will get dressed like always. But underneath that routine, something ancient is still there. You are not just picking clothes, you are choosing how to be seen. The same instinct humans have had for thousands of years.